Kuna yi da yawa.
Nine.
Do you have a pen?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening.
Or I can hear you. Good evening.
All right,
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. To start shortly, I've also made Dr. Otefe to be a co-host, sir, so that you are able to share your slides from your hand to allow you free flow. So
thank you so much.
thank you, sir. I think Mrs. Ido is in the house. I'm going to share the bio of our speaker. Just to let us also know that we are also live on the YouTube right now. And this is a meeting organized by the TCN community, Working Single Community Group, talking about relationship traffic rules. This I'm very sure is going to expose us to a whole lot of stuff that we need to get to know and also to watch out for as we make plans to go into a relationship, and also for those who are married already, particularly the leaders, there are also stuff that we need to watch out for. So I do hope and believe that this evening is going to be a great evening. So tell someone to tell someone, go get back on your different tribes WhatsApp group and ask them to join that we are live right now. So I'm going to bring up shortly the bio for Dr. Otefe. So please do let me know once you can see it. Yes, can you see it now? Hello, can you see it now?
Yeah,
Mrs. Ido?
we can, I can see it.
Oh, all right, so do you want to go ahead and voice it? Hello, Mrs. Ido.
Hello.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and read it?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, ma. Yes, we can hear you. If you can hear me, we can all hear you. Okay, I think our network. So please, if you can hear me, please go to the chat box and tell me that you can hear me. So I'm going to read Dr. Otefe Edebi's profile shortly so that we can, in the interest of time, we can run with this meeting. Okay, great. So Dr. Otefe Edebi is a consultant psychiatrist and a physiologist with 15 years of experience in the field of mental health. He's obtained a bachelor degree in medicine and surgery from University of Benin, a master's degree in managerial psychology from University of Lagos, and he is a fellow of the Faculty of Psychiatry of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. He is a certified New Bush IGC occupational health and safety professional and an alumni of Earth Management Program of Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University. He's also a certificate. He also has a certificate in leadership and management in health from the Global Health Program of the University of Washington. He is the recipient of the 2017 PSR Development in Nigeria Marital Award DIMA for his contribution to mental health, particularly in the private sector. He is the Pioneer Employee Assistance Program Professional of Nigeria LNG, Pioneer Medical Director of the Tranquil and Quest Nigeria, which is affiliated to GenPsych, which has its head office in New Jersey and has served as a consultant to individuals and groups of both indigenous and multinational organizations on mental health related matters. He is passionate about mental health issues and practice providers advocacy and awareness. He is a thought leader in the area of mental and emotional well-being. One of his personal favorite mantra is that if we want to change the world we see, then we must first change the world within. He currently serves as the medical director and senior consultant of the Grace Hill Place Hospital, which is a 30-bed private medical health and substance abuse treatment facility based in Lagos, which is operated by the management and partners of Grace Hill Behavioral Health Services Limited. He's happily married with children, and his hobbies include reading, watching series, and spending time with family. So help me welcome tonight Dr. Otefe Edebi. Go to the chat box and let's give him a warm welcome tonight. I'm sure it's going to be a blessing to every one of us. So, Dr. Otefe, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Oluwole. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. I'm
Good evening.
excited. Good evening. I'm excited to be here this evening to talk on relationship traffic rules. I'm just going to share my slide and we'll go right into it. So like I've been introduced, I am a psychiatrist, I'm also a psychologist, and I'm also a marriage counselor. And I've been doing that for a bit. And so I'm hoping that at the end of our conversation today, this is how we are going to do it today. So I'm going to start out and I will just go ahead and teach. Then at the end of my conversation, we will then have a discussion in terms of questions and answers and take the principles that I share and then make it more like even in the teaching it will be practical, but then you can ask very direct questions and we'll take it from there. So can we all see my slide, please? Just say yes. Can you see the
Yes.
screen? Okay, beautiful. So a bit about myself. So that's me and my lovely wife. 30th of November, which is like 17 days from today, 2000, the year 2000, that's 21 years ago, was when it became official. Not that we became married in 2000, but it became official where we said to her, okay, I'd said it before, but then we met somewhere, and as Christians, we prayed about it, and we met officially. So it's 21 years out. I'm always excited about November 30th, even though it's not my wedding anniversary. My wedding anniversary is February 3rd. So we said yes to each other, and then we inscribed on our wedding ring many years later, but it's something that we have worked with, is 1 John chapter 5, verse 4, which says, and whatsoever is born of God overcomes the world. So we kind of that was kind of our theme from the moment we came together. And this, we were now, she was just 20 back then. So technically, our age. So, and that's how the journey started. Just yesterday, my wife said to me that it's a beautiful thing to be able to wake up every day with someone you love, someone you enjoy doing. So I didn't preempt it, but I think it means I am doing something well. I guess we're doing something well. Let me just put that out there. But marriage is something that marriage counseling is something we do together. It's something that we love to do together. Interestingly and coincidentally, as we speak right now, she's on another forum having conversation on marriage as well as I am doing right now. So that's our story in brief. We've been together for 21 years, but we've been married for 14 years. And I just want to share some things that I believe over time, not just because of my personal experience, because I've been blessed and opportune by the nature of my profession, and also what as someone who's also involved in church, to listen to different people, to hear different stories, especially as regards marriage. And I think this will be the things I'm going to share, I believe so much in my heart that it's going to be quite helpful, and it will make a difference. So having said that, let me start out so I'm talking about relationship traffic rules, but I would like to start out with what I call the ground rules before we talk about the core main rules that guides, and like I said in the title, how to find and let me see how I could say finding and keeping the one. So how do I do that? So I want to start out with what I call the ground rules, because everything that we're going to talk about, that I'm going to talk about this next 35-40 minutes, is based on this ground rules. The first thing first is this, that marriage is God's idea. Now, this may sound very basic. Now I'm talking to the community group. This may sound very basic, but it's important we start here as a ground rule. Now, if Jesus lived in this time and in this age, and let's say that this is about the time he was doing ministry, Jesus would most likely belong to this community group, because Jesus was 30 to 33 when he did ministry. Now, I start out with Jesus because there was one day Jesus had a conversation with the Pharisees, and the conversation went this way. They said to him, they said, is it okay for us to divorce on any grounds? Is it okay for us to, just on any grounds? And Jesus said, no, it's not okay. Now, that conversation for me, I like to always play the story in my head and just put myself in that time and wonder how the conversation went. I'm sure at that point, when Jesus said it's not okay, somebody must have looked at his left hand, his ring finger, and noticed that this guy is not wearing a ring on his handle, so he doesn't know much about marriage like that. Somebody else must have looked at him and sized him up and said, the guy is still young. They've not done him strong thing. That's why he's talking like this, saying that we cannot divorce. If he has experienced life, he would not be talking like that. So they went on to say to him that, but Moses said we could do it, because the Jews have a very massive respect for Moses. Moses is the one who brought the law. So they said, Moses said we could do it. Then Jesus went on to say something. He said that it was out of the hardness of your heart. It's your culture, your decisions that brought it to this point. Then he made a statement. He said, but in the beginning, it was not so. So it's good to go back to lay that foundation to say that marriage is a concept of God. Because Jesus too, at some other point, told them outrightly, he said, because of your traditions or because of your culture, you have made the word of God of no effect. Now, it's important that we understand that marriage is not something that started out, or relationship is not something that started out from God, from man, I mean, but from God. It was God that saw Adam and said, it's not good for the man to be alone. And then he said, I will make him a helpmate that is suitable and complementary to him. So it was not Adam's idea. It wasn't Adam that went to God and said, I need somebody, I need someone in my life. It was God's idea. And that was, interestingly, the first thing that God said was not good. Every other thing, it was kept saying it was good, it was good, it was good. But then he said it's not good for the man to be alone. And every statement I'm going to make is very important. So I want you to listen closely and follow me, please, closely. Now, it's important we understand that marriage is the concept of God, because if we want to have a successful relationship and a successful outcome in our marriage, then we must focus more on building our marriage based on scriptures rather than just based on popular culture or our traditional cultures. I'll take that again. It's important we build our marriage on scripture and not on culture, whether the culture is pop culture or traditional cultures. Because when you go on the internet or you read books and all of that, everyone is trying to put their best in, they're trying to tell you how to run, have a fantastic relationship, how to have a fantastic thing. But then if you run your relationships or run your marriage based on just culture, for me, I can liken it to someone who buys a Samsung television and then goes on to take an LG manual you can't use an LG manual and optimize the use of your Samsung TV. So it is best you go back to the one that coined marriage, the one that has it all planned out, that intended marriage, the creator of marriage, the inventor of marriage, rather than going to just anyone and everyone, asking them what their opinion is on marriage. So that is very important to lay that down as a ground rule. Yes, you may have your unique expression in your own relationship, your own unique expression in your own marriage, but ultimately the foundation in itself should be based on the principles of God. Your expression may be unique, but the foundation should be based on the principle of God. The second ground rule I would like to establish before I go into the main core traffic rules is that marriage is a good thing. Now, you may say, oh, duh, we all know that already. I mean, tell us something new. Now, I said this because some people have described relationship or marriage as a necessary evil. Some have even said, look, sometimes people are in a relationship and I hear people say, oh, let's not put a label on it, because once we put a label on it, we will jinx it. So let's not take this to the next level. The person is asking, okay, are we taking it to the next level? I say, what we have already is a good thing. There's no need to go on to the next level. Once we put marriage on it, or we put a label as a couple, or put a label as in we're in serious relationship, we're going to jinx it. So people have those notions, and quite a number of us, I say us because I'm included, so quite a number of us have had I call it horrible examples, maybe from our friends, maybe from our parents, maybe from uncles and aunties, their marriages. We look at their marriages, and those horrible experiences has made marriage less and less appealing, such that we begin to think that is marriage really necessary? I'm here to say, regardless of whatever anybody's experience is, regardless of even if the person is a spiritual person that you hold in high esteem and then it didn't work out, that in itself does not define the original intention of the inventor. The original intent of the inventor, he said marriage is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? I'll tell you why. Because it is intended to provide companionship. It is intended to provide pleasure. It is intended to optimize your potential. That's to be your best version. To be your best version. That's the whole goal there. And then the final ground rule I would like to establish is that marriage is for matured people. Now you may say, hold up. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm going to tell you what I mean. Now, maturity, now hear me really clearly. I'm going to go really slow here. Maturity is not a function of your marital status, neither is it a function of your age. Maturity is not a function. So you can be married and be immature. So I'm not just talking about, so when I talk about marriage, I'm talking about enjoy marriage as it's meant to be, not just the fact that, oh, my marital status is I'm single or I'm married. You can be married. I wrote down here in my book, I said, look, there are 21-year-old men and there are 40-year-old boys. There are also 24-year-old wives and there are 37-year-old girlfriends. There are married men who are best described as mommy's boys. And there are married women who still fantasize and act out as though they are single. So it's not, when I'm talking about maturity, I'm not just talking about, oh, your marital status or marriage is for mature people. Meaning that you can, if you are married and you don't understand the concept of maturity, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the concept of maturity. Now, like I said, marriage is an idea of God. So let's go back to the original, the one who made it. In Genesis 2, verse 24 and 25, the Bible says there that Adam, the first time he saw Eve, he said, wow, man. That's how I believe that's how the word woman came. He must have said, wow, man. So he called that. Then he goes on to say in 24 that for this purpose, a man will leave his father and his mother and will cling to his wife. Now, Adam did not have a physical father or mother, but he made a statement very profound. Now, this is what makes that statement profound. The word translated man, when he said, for this purpose, a man. Now, before that statement in verse 24, the word man had been used already. God created man, God formed man. But interestingly, the Hebrew word for man that was used before that verse 24 is actually a word that is called, that simply means mankind or man of a low degree. But when Adam said, for this purpose, a man, the word he used in that is a different Hebrew word. And that word actually means a champion or an individual of high degree. So he was talking about maturity. He was not talking about you just being in your basic form. And when we talk about maturity, we're talking about there has to be maturity physically, there has to be maturity mentally, there has to be maturity emotionally, there has to be maturity financially, spiritually, and socially. If you want to enjoy your marriage, or enjoy your relationship, you have to grow in your maturity. So I'm not saying this to make anyone feel, any uncomfortable, but to say, look, if you are going to have the best out of marriage or out of a relationship, you have to become better or you have to grow in maturity. And I wrote down here, I said, one key difference between a child and an adult is work. That thing that they often say that adulting is a scam. Why is it a scam? Because as a child, you don't work. You don't put in any work. You just wake up. You don't know where the next food is coming. Well, on the average, I'm not. Some people have to work, when they were children. But I'm saying, ideally, a child is not supposed to work. So why did I talk about work? Because it takes work to make it work. It takes you have to work on work on yourself mentally, emotionally, socially, financially. You have to keep working on yourself. Even if your relationship or your marriage is made in heaven, you need to work on it to make it work. So marriage requires people to work, because many times some people come into marriage and they just want to remain boys. They want to remain girls. They want to throw tantrums. They just want to act out as if there's no responsibility. They just want the pleasures and they don't want the responsibility. Marriage comes with its pleasures, but it also comes with its responsibilities. There has to be adjustments and all of that. So these three ground rules are the three ground rules I said I should first drop. First things first is that marriage is God's idea. And if we have to have the best out of it, we have to think about it from the place of scripture and not just from the place of culture. Second thing is that marriage is a good thing, regardless of whatever experience one has had or whatever we have seen, doesn't take out the fact that the one who invented it said it's a good thing. And then the third thing is that marriage is for mature people. And maturity, like I said before, is not a function of age, neither is it a function of your marital status. You can be single and matured. You can be married and still be immature. But if you have to have the best out of it, these are things that you need to work on. Now, having said that, now in the next few minutes, let's go into the core traffic rules. How do I make the best out of, how do I find that one and keep that one? How do I find that one and how do I keep that one? What are the things I should stop, wait, go, stop doing, continue doing, refrain and all of that. So the first rule that I would like to share with us this beautiful evening is number one. The first rule is this: most often, it is not that we attract the wrong person or the wrong man or woman. It is often we accept the wrong person. It is so I've heard people say, oh, I keep attracting wrong people, regardless of what I try to do. It's almost like if you put out an advert and say, I'm looking for a loving, God-fearing, somebody who will love me for me, who will just, keep, who would not break my heart and all of that. It's almost like if you put out that advert, at the end of the day, you get, it's just like that joke they say when you order a thing online and see what I ordered and see what I got. So many times it is not that you keep attracting the wrong people. It is more about that you keep accepting the wrong people. Now, why do some of us keep accepting the wrong people? Sometimes this is happening because, we have this concept that relationship or marriage is going to make you whole. It's going to make you complete, or it's going to make you happy. So you keep accepting people, because you are looking for that completion. But interestingly, as I was preparing, I realized something, that the word the Bible talks about, God said that I will make him a helpmeet that will complement him. Now, the Bible did not say that God will make us a helpmate that will complete us. Now, that is simple, but that is important. Your spouse, the person you go into a relationship with, is not supposed to complete you. You're supposed to be complete. It's only in God you find your completeness. So that person is supposed to complement you. There's a bit of difference. That's why 1 + 1 in marriage or in relationship leading to marriage, 1 + 1 is 1, because when you come together, it's a multiplying effect. It's not an additional effect. 1 × 1 is 1. 1 + 1 is 2. But it's not like one half meets another half and then you form one. No, you are supposed to be whole all by yourself. So check yourself, because many times I see people, like I'm in counseling session and someone is telling me about a series of relationship they've been in, and the patterns are whether the person is fair, whether the person is dark, whether the person is horrible, or whether the person is slim. The patterns just seem to be the same. The person just seems like as if you are attracting the wrong person. But I often say that, look, if you pause and take a look, you will realize that you also attract good people. You also attract wonderful people. It's just that most times you don't pay attention to those good people that you are also attracting. Most times you often settle and accept the ones that are not necessarily good for you. Which brings me to the second point, the second rule of relationship. The second rule is this: your acceptance is not necessarily based on what you want, but really it is based on your subconsciousness. It's not based on what is on the surface. So you may be saying with one mouth that, oh, I want somebody that will, someone that will, that is honest, someone that I can trust. But deep down inside, you are saying there's a record playing inside of you that says, look, nobody can be trusted. Or there's a record playing inside of you saying that you can't be, you should not open up yourself. You shouldn't tell somebody completely. There should not be full disclosure. But yet you keep saying that you want something to be based on trust. You can't have intimacy. You can't have beautiful relationship where there's a lack of trust. You are saying you want trust. You are saying you want something to work out. But deep down inside of you, there's another record playing altogether. Now, this record may be coming from past events that have happened in your life. In fact, somebody described it this way. He said, that record playing inside of you is called your inner coach. So there's a voice telling you that, no, people cannot be trusted. Another example I wrote down here is this. Sometimes some people say, oh, I want to be in a relationship that leads to marriage, but we're not going to have sex, because we are Christians and I want to honor God and we're not going to have sex. Now, you say that's what you want, but at the end of the day, a record is playing inside of you that says, how can you, if you don't give it to him or you don't give it to her, then somebody else will give it. So there's a record playing inside. So at the end of the day, you give in because there's a record playing inside of you. There's a belief system that is down inside of you. There's a value system that you have. So that's why it's important that you begin to pay attention to what is going on underneath. Because you can be asking for one thing, but you can keep behaving in a way that keeps sabotaging what you want. No wonder quite a number of people, they keep getting into similar relationship that is detrimental. Someone said something I wrote down here. Why do I keep choosing the same partner? Why no matter how many new criteria I mentally create, do I keep winding up in a slightly varied version of the same? So I keep saying, oh, this is what I want, but then I go out and I keep choosing people with similar patterns. Many times when I listen to people and they tell me about the past events in their lives, I often notice that you are just doing the same thing over and over again. So there are certain things going on. It's not about what you are saying you want. It's about what is going on inside. That is the second rule. And that's important because it kind of leads me to the third rule. And this is the third rule. Change may be required. If you want to get that desired outcome that you want, that desired relationship. For example, someone can say, oh, and sometimes we resign and say, I don't want to be married. You say you want to be married, but inside of you, you are saying that, but who's going to take me? Nobody's going to accept me. So there's a subconsciousness rejecting yourself already. There's a subconsciousness saying that it's not going to work out for you. Now, in case you belong to that class, you may not be, this is a wide group, so that some of us may not have that as a challenge. But whatever that subconsciousness is, you need to make some form of adjustments. You need to change the record going on inside. You need to look at yourself and begin to understand, because some of us, it is our hurts, our past, the events that have happened. Let me give an example at this point. I sat down, I think this was 2004. I was sitting down. No, I wasn't sitting down. I was at work. I'm a medical doctor, and I was at work, and this group of women were talking, and all of them just kept going on about how all men are cheats, all men are dogs. And they were, like they often say that misery finds company. So you find somebody that shares your common past, someone that shares a common hurt. Okay, we are both hurting together and all of that. And we find ourselves always hooking up to people that we share a common past. Let me quickly say this before I forget. A common past is very important. It's good. A common past is good. I wouldn't say it's very important, but a common future is far more important than a common past. So you need to become more self-aware and begin to make the necessary changes. Sometimes you get into a relationship and you are acting out as though that relationship is your ex. And sometimes the ex I'm talking about is not necessarily your ex, but the events that have happened, this uncle that cheated on this person, or how your mom or how your dad treated your mom treated your dad, and your dad treated your mom, and people are living out all those things. So becoming self-aware of those things. How do you become self-aware? What do you need to do? Sometimes your friends, especially good friends, are able to point out those patterns for you. They're able to identify those patterns, because some of us just keep hanging out with the people that don't really treat us well. Because when you have someone that's doting over you, someone that really cares about you, something inside of you is telling you they will soon go, they will soon leave, And in fact, sometimes you even start acting up and doing things that will make them go and leave. Then you say, well, I said it, they'll soon go. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you need to change. You may need to change your mindset. Sometimes also, I wrote down here that you may need to change your friends. If the kind of friends you keep are the ones, like those women who sat down and kept going, all men are dogs. I know why I raised that story was that As I listened to them that day, I found it interesting because as at that time, I wasn't married, but I said to myself, but all the men I know in my own circle, they don't cheat on their, at least to the best of my knowledge, I wasn't cheating. And all the friends I had, I don't think they were cheating. I can almost say they were not cheating at all. So I said to myself, so that's their own reality. That's not the reality, but that's their own reality. So you may need to change that company. Maybe you are in a company of people who keep saying that, well, we can never get married or won't get married or something, or try to play down on that, even though that's your desire. You may need to change that company. So change may be required. Change the things you listen to, change the things that you watch. Also, as you make these changes, change is not easy. Becoming self-aware takes a lot. Sometimes you may need to even sit down with somebody else to bring to your awareness that these are your tendencies. You may be wishing for something, but doing something completely opposite what you are wishing for. So you need to be patient through the journey. When you are working through your changes, be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself through the process. Be kind to yourself. Now, this is not even to say that when you get into a relationship, because sometimes people get into a relationship and it's because both parties are hurting. Maybe they feel like, oh, the world has left us, so we come into a relationship and we're together. Now, you can become better at, both of you can discover and say, oh, this is why we came together, and begin to grow together. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're in that kind of relationship, you have to break it and leave the person. No, both of you can talk to each other and say, look, I think we started out this way. We may not have even started out on the best and the right premise. But if we are both willing to grow together, if we are both willing to make adjustments, then it can still work. So it's not always like you have to change every relationship, because sometimes that's another mistake some people make. They think that every time it's not working, then I have to change it. Sometimes the change doesn't have to be external. The change has to be inside of you. That's why I said change may be required. So don't give into resignation that perhaps this is your lot, that this is how I am, I can never change. No, we all have the capacity to reinvent ourselves, to get better at ourselves. So identify those things inside of you. Those we call it defect of character in psychology sometimes, and begin to work on them. And if your partner or your spouse is also willing, both of you begin to work on them. Having said that, the final rule for this evening is this. Rule number 4, after you've done all that you know, trust God. He has a fabulous record at matchmaking. Now, you can, many times we have this list, and there's nothing wrong with having the list. There's nothing wrong with having our desires and having it all planned out. I like his statement that I heard, that your spouse or that person is not hidden from you. Rather, that person is hidden for you. So sometimes that person may not come in the package that you expect. You may be looking at that bad girl, bad boy, or a good girl, whatever. Or you may even be looking at that person and saying that person is not good enough. And sometimes God just brings that person your way, and he has it all planned out, all figured out. I always like to share at this point my own personal testimony. Though, like I said, we started some years back. I remember the first day, one day when we were planning to get married, when it was time to do the whole wedding itself, and we're going from one relative to another relative to invite them to the wedding. I remember going to see one of my own on my own side, my aunt, and my wife had a car, and my wife could drive. Back then, I could not drive. Now, I did not say I did not have a car. There's a difference. You may not have a car but know how to drive. I did not know how to drive at all. So I remember when we stepped out of the house of my aunt and we got to the vehicle, and my wife got to the driver's seat and I sat in the passenger side. So my aunt just said, you are teaching her how to drive. That's awkward. I just kept quiet. I like, something like that. Quite embarrassing. But well, it looked embarrassing back then. So God has his perfect, God knows how he will work it out. sometimes when we go to God to pray and we're praying for that person we want to hook up with, that person we love, that person we want to be with, sometimes we sound like this. We may not intentionally do it, but we go to God and we say something like this, that, Father, you are ancient of days. You may not be aware of trending things. You may not be aware of recent happenings. So let me advise you, as you are going to help me to choose the person I want to marry. You have already told God, you're already telling him to tilt towards a particular side. So after you've done everything, even when it comes to just working on yourself, sometimes you need the help of God. So trust God. That's my fourth rule for this conversation, that after you've done everything, number one, that it's not just about who you keep attracting, it's who you keep accepting. Number two, it's really about what is going on below. It's not just the actions you are taking, it is what is your inner coach saying to you, what is the self-talk that you keep, what's that record that keeps playing on inside of you. And three, make the changes. And four, after you've done everything, trust God. God has a beautiful way of matchmaking people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Edebi is in the house now. Mr. Edebi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Otefe. It was very, very rich and enlightening. But we have questions, and we would like to get to it quickly. The second point you made about it's about the when you put the slide of the iceberg, and you showed the values, that it's really the values that are not seen on the surface that controls the behavior that we see, where we could be saying one thing or acting in another way. I mean, in your own opinion, and I mean, with your experience, how does one begin to change these hidden parts of us so that, it can eventually start affecting our behaviors on the outward?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So one thing is that to begin to work on those things is that look at your track record, look at yourself, ask yourself very, very critical questions. Examine yourself, like it says, think about your actions. Sometimes stop and say, why am I in this relationship? What are my fears? Because sometimes, for example, someone may have fear like, I don't like being lonely. I don't like being alone. So because there's that constant fear that I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be lonely. You just end up jumping from one relationship to another, even when clearly it's not working. Even clearly when it's not clearly working, you just want to jump into another relationship. So first things first is take account of yourself, examine yourself, ask yourself strong questions. Then another way to discover this is ask your friends. Ask your friends, what do you think? What's your opinion? Especially when you have very sound friends, not just friends that are just, we just share our misery together. Friends that can tell you straight up and say, look, girl, I don't think this is the right relationship. Ask them. That's a powerful place to get help from. Then, sometimes you may need to talk to somebody else. But having done that, the next thing is to now start making the needed adjustments. So that's how you identify it. Ask yourself, ask friends to give you feedback on yourself, and then begin to make the adjustments. So then look at your patterns also. If you want to start making adjustments, if you notice that, I'm always dating this kind of people, then maybe I should stop dating that and pay attention to, like, for example, some people would say, from experience, some people would say, I don't like guys that are always, they like me too much. I like the ones that are distant, that, play hide and seek with me, that are, they love me, but yet they don't need me and they treat me this thing. So you may want to break that and allow yourself to go into a relationship that the person is doting over you completely. That's one way you can deal with such patterns.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay. So I would like to say to everybody on this session, um, you can start writing your questions in the chat area, or if you want to ask the questions directly to provide better clarity to enable our guests answer, in a way that will be clearer, you can just raise your hand so that you can ask your questions directly, or you can just start sending your questions into the chat area. I would like one of the leaders, any of the leaders, to ask questions that maybe came in from their tribe groups now. Just go ahead and ask any question that maybe your people have posted, or let's start sending the questions from the presentation. And your questions don't have to be tied to what was presented. You might have had a question that has been bugging you about relationship or marriage, as it were. This is that forum where you can ask that question and get clarity and get answers. So let's go ahead. Let's start sending in those questions. Any of the leaders, Jumoke, Jaye, if you have questions, let's go ahead and ask the doctor right now.
There's a question here at the chat area. Someone is asking, is it possible not to love the man God has chosen for you?
Okay, lovely question. So now that sounds a bit complex, but I'm going to try to answer that. Now, notice that if we go back to the beginning, I always love to look at it from scripture. God never told Adam that this is your wife. He presented this thing. Adam had the choice to say yes or no. So you have a choice to say yes or no. But secondly, like I said, it's a complex question. My question then is, why don't you love the person? Because you see, once again, I talked about your record that is playing inside of you. So the record inside may be saying something else, like, okay, maybe it's not what I want. And that's why I talked about the last point, that God, if you genuinely say you have that kind of, you are sure, because sometimes people say God told me, and I'm not easily moved by that statement as a person. But I also know that if you have clarity about God telling you certain things, it's because he has seen a future you do not know about. Let me give a personal experience. When I was in university, I really liked this girl. I really, really liked her, and I was praying one day about her, and God said to me, it's not often I get God tell me clearly. So it's not like I have that experience every time. But he said, you can go on in this relationship, but you will end up being hurt. So he said it the first time, and then it wasn't, I had not said anything clearly. We just kept hanging out and all that. Then I prayed again, and then he said the same thing to me. Then the second time, I kind of knew that he would not tell me the third time, that it was now my choice. So is that I can go on. God doesn't force anybody into any relationship at all. That's my own strong belief, because God did not force Eve on Adam. He just presented, and Adam did the whole rest thing. So if that's why I say it's complex, if it is truly, truly God, and because he knows your future, he knows how it will play out. I know people who are married because of their current fantasies or their current situation, and then the thing plays out in a way that's not so beautiful later. And then people also have gotten married to somebody, and like years later, they're like, thank God I made that decision. So I look back, I don't know anything about that lady. I don't know where she is. I really don't know, and I really don't care. But I am 100%, 150% happy, 200%, 1000% happy with the person that I am spending my life with. So that's why I said it's a bit complex. Is it just, someone is saying God is saying that's your person? If that is the case, know that God is not forcing anybody on you. But if you trust God and you have that kind of walk with Him, I would say, well, I want to ask what is going on the inside. Why are you resisting that? So it's a bit complex, like I said. That's my response to that question.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I can see that Inspire's hand is up. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. We have another question also in the chat area. Take it after our own
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Thank you, doctor, for your presentation. Very insightful. Okay, so my question here is, so sometimes, like, if you discover, now you've talked a lot about going inward and finding yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so if you've discovered a particular thing, like for me, like 2 or 3 years back, I realized I had trust issues that I didn't even know was that bad, and I was able to trace it to a particular event. I've been very conscious of it, that, okay, this is something I've had, and I've constantly tried to work on it. But again, somehow I just still, find myself struggling to kind of give people that chance. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not just men. So it's stronger when it comes to men, but even other people, they're just always this, red alarm that just comes up, bam, bam, bam. So,
yeah.
and I'm aware that this is there, but I don't know, is there something else that I need to do? Or is it that I haven't like really gotten to the root? Like, if that event that I kind of acknowledge was the root where it started from, basically, if that is it, or if there is something else, that makes it still there. Because I mean, I've made really conscious efforts. I mean, I'm not as bad as I used to be, but then I know it's still there, and it's not as probably as good as I want it to be. So I don't know if you have any tips on what I can do, or if there is something else I need to look out for, like, yeah, that's my question.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And I think what you just shared actually just captures what I was talking about. So the thing is, I like when you said you are not as bad as you used to be. You may not be where you want to be, and that's where being patient with yourself, being kind to yourself. And then the idea is to keep catching yourself every time you are struggling with trust, and ask yourself, is this, there's something we'll say that, ask yourself, has this person given me any reason to not trust them, or is just my record once again playing in my head? So that awareness is the beginning of the journey. Now, you're not just going to go from that experience, maybe whatever that experience was. You're not just going to get up and everything is just going to be perfect the moment you have identified it. But the fact that you have identified it is the beginning of the journey. Then another thing too is that you should carry out actions that are opposite your natural instinct. You see, one thing that those things do for you is that they create, when you have a past and it's affecting you, not trusting people has become your comfort zone. So you have to work towards getting out of your comfort zone. And how do you do it? So you take out practical steps that are in contradiction to your comfort zone. So maybe, I don't know, whatever it is, you don't have to start with anything massive. Start out with simple steps, things that will make you say, even though I don't feel like trusting this person, or maybe something as simple as, I don't like to divulge certain aspect of my life because of my experience. So you divulge something simple. You at first, when it starts out, there'll be a shaking, almost like you are going against your normal self, your comfort zone, but keep working on it. But I'm so happy you've recognized it. Keep taking one step at a time. It's a patient journey, but you will keep getting better. The idea of growth, and like I talked about maturity, is about working. It takes work. So you need to keep working on it. But one day, what you suddenly realize is that you wake up one day and you realize you are far from where you used to be. You may still have those issues. We are all sensitive at our core. That's the truth. But you know that, look, I'm much better than where I used. So I would say be patient with yourself, but take little steps. Do things that are contrary to what is your comfort zone. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Somebody asked on the chat, said that when you find okay, what are the danger signs? Okay, I don't know if I can. Let me not jump
Yes,
myself.
sorry.
Because
Before that question,
yeah, go ahead.
there's a question here. I think the first question that we have there is a well done, sir, and thanks for this. Please, does location play a part in connection to a life partner, especially for people like us that are hooked up with work day in and out throughout the weeks, and also weekends? Will it affect chances of getting a life partner? Yeah.
Okay, well, the answer is absolutely no, because you see, that's where I talk about the fourth point. The rule is that sometimes we have this plan in our mind and what we think. Relationship is complex and simple at the same time, so it's a lot. Sometimes we're playing out that this is how it's going to work out. So what God has a way in match makes people. So I don't think you should, if I were you, rest, put it out there, put out your desire out there. When I say put it out there, that's to God, and say, this is what I want. This is what, you don't have to have 20 dates to get married. Sometimes just one is enough. So and that one can come from anywhere. And it's not even really about how long you date, because in my experience, I have seen people who dated for 9 years and the marriage didn't last for 9 months. And I've seen people who dated for 6 months and they are still on and doing fantastic after 20 years. So don't feel that I have to date so many times or meet so many people. It's just one person that we're talking about, and God can work that out for you. So it's for me, it's a complete, you don't bother your head about that. Just keep doing what you are doing, and putting out what you want, and trust God. He will take care of you.
Okay, to the next question, please. What are the danger signs we should watch out for?
Now, when you say danger signs, that for me is once again another relationship complex question. But I would rather focus on what are the things you should look out for, not the things you should. Sharing common values, it's very important. Sharing common dreams is also very important. Sharing common, let me put it out there, because I know this one may be like, doesn't follow, but I think having a common faith also is important. And when I'm talking about faith, I'm not just about Christian, this is that we share the same kind of, because you can be Christians, but not necessarily share the same kind of faith. So having those things in common, they are things that help. And then also having someone that is willing to grow, someone who's willing to say, I'm sorry, someone who's willing to keep getting better at themselves, and someone who has the genuine, I'm stressing because they know sometimes this word has been used so much that it has been spoiled, but having a genuine fear and love for God at the same time. Those are some things that can help. Now, I say all of this because, you see, things like being romantic is very, very important, extremely important, especially to women. But let me tell you this, you can teach your spouse to be romantic. You can teach that person that you are in this thing, but these other things is very hard to teach people to become. So there are things that you can work. Really don't want to be in a relationship with someone that's violent, someone that's those are red flags. Those are red flags. Those are things that you really, really, somebody can be toxic and not know they are toxic and be willing to change when it is pointed out. But someone who is toxic and is not willing to change and keeps telling you this is how I am and I will never change, those are red flags that you should be careful not to listen. So for me, those are red flags, and those are some of the things you should look out for.
All right, thank you, Doctor. I'm going to take this question from the YouTube. Someone is asking on the YouTube that what is the ideal time frame for a serious Christian courtship?
Okay, I think that's the question that's often asked. I would say there's no ideal time frame. And now I'll tell you why. Because I don't think Adam courted this thing. Is that, like I just mentioned here, you can court for 9 years and still it doesn't work out. You can court. I remember a couple that came to therapy once. And when I asked the lady why they were going through tough times, she said, because we courted for 4 months, we didn't know each other. Then the man came on another day and I asked him, what happened? What's the issue in your mind? He said, oh, we courted for 4 months. I had to tell them, look, it has nothing to do with 4 months. There are people who are not Christians, who did not court at all, who their marriage was arranged, but they applied the principles. When you apply the principles, it works for you, whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian. If you apply certain godly scriptural principles, they will work for you. So, but if you want to put a figure to it, let your courtship be a time, like someone said, of interview and not a time of intercourse. So is that in the period of your courtship, take out time to understand and know each other, discuss your dreams, discuss your values, discuss all of that. That's not the time to just say, okay, by the 3rd date, we'll have sex and all that. Because when those things begin to creep in, they begin to cloud your judgment. I remember a particular individual who said, look, he knew the relationship was not good for him, but the sex was good, the sex was available. So it just kept going on, even though it wasn't nice. So that's what I would just advise. That's my own. There's no ideal, but let it be a time where you interact with each other, interview each other, and get to know each other. Now, this can happen in 3 months. This can happen in 6 months. This can be a bit longer. Circumstances differ for different people. But if you apply the principles, whether you spend 6 months or 6 years, you are likely going to have a fantastic relationship.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I will take the next one. How does one practically break free from the consciousness of a high expectation standards for beauty and attraction, especially when personal experience has shown only this type of spec, mostly among married women and people already engaged to be married. So at what point?
Okay, beautiful question. Once again, you see how your inner coach is telling you that my experience, what I have observed. So your inner coach is your subconsciousness. Is telling you that this is reality. I can tell you that that's not reality. So, and sometimes how do you practically break away from those things? It's when it's called a self-talk. You start talking back to yourself. What you have just described is the talk that is going on in your mind. You need to respond to this talk. That is why we practice things like affirmations. When you are saying, I'm beautiful, I'm bold, I'm good all by myself, I'm strong, I'm lovable, I deserve to be loved, and all of that. What you are doing is that you are speaking, you are creating a new pathway in your mind. Yes, and it works powerfully. There's someone I know. I wouldn't describe too much, so the person wouldn't know him. I every time I see this particular person, I have great admiration for her. She's not necessarily very beautiful, but very confident. Confidence is an attraction, and poor self-esteem is a put off sometimes. So sometimes you have people that are very beautiful, but they just, they don't value themselves. So you need to value yourself. That's why I said your wholeness does not come from you being married. Your wholeness comes from you being connected with your maker. So affirmations is one practical way to break that. Talking back to yourself, saying that I am good, I am beautifully, I'm wonderfully made, and all of that. But that's one practical way to walk out of that conversation that keeps going on in your head. Because every day you see people that are not so pretty getting married, people that are fantastically pretty getting married. So there's nothing that supports this statement 100%. If it was a therapy session we were doing, I would tell you, write down the things that support this, and then I will tell you, write down the things that do not support this. Initially, your brain will block. There will be a block, like, no, everything I know supports this. But then if you think a little bit further, you realize that this is not 100% true. This is just how you see it. And life is what it is, not what you think it is. So that's one way to break it. Affirmation, speaking back and creating that new thing inside of you. But that doesn't rule out the fact that please keep working on your physical outlook and all that. I mean, it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing.
Okay, I'm going to take this
I-
question and then allow the person raising his or her hand to ask a question. Someone is saying here that I'm stuck on genotype, tribal notion, belief, and a bit of comfort to start with. I need help. A huge part of me says all that really matters is Christ, friendship, and the will to grow. But I still find myself falling back and skin in this belief. How do I break free and play safe?
Beautiful question. So, beautiful question. How do I break free? So, practically, so you said there are tribal issues, there are all of that issues. They form your subconsciousness. So even though you are saying one thing, you keep falling back to your comfort zone, which has been formed based on certain experiences in the past. So those things didn't just fall from heaven. Now acknowledge them, be self-aware of them. And as you go on, every time you fall back to that place, don't feel bad. Don't resign to it. Don't say because I keep falling. It's like a child who keeps falling and then says because I keep falling, then I should not just bother to stand up to walk. Be patient. Moving from what you are used to is not very, very easy. It's a big struggle, and that's why you see the question coming up again and again and again. Sometimes you need to talk back to yourself. Sometimes you need to what we call challenging those negative thoughts, or not. In this case, it's not necessarily a negative thought, but it's just a mindset. That's the best word. A mindset. You need to challenge what supports this mindset. So, for example, tribe. I remember a couple. My friend. I was the best man at his wedding. The dad back then said, "We want your wife to come from our village." But my friend was like, "But my older brother's wife came from our village and their marriage is not working. So why would you still want to hold on to that tradition? Why would you want to hold on to that?" So someone can say, "Oh, I will only marry from this tribe." Now, there are people who are that married from the tribe you said you don't want to marry from, and their marriage is beautiful. So the way you challenge those thoughts is by finding examples around you that negates that stronghold, that mindset. You are talking to yourself, that's affirmation. You're also finding examples. Now, you may find just one example. You don't have to find 20. For example, you may say all men are liars, and then you just find one man that is not a liar, one man in your many examples, and hold on to that one example and say, well, if this one person, that means there must be another person that's also not a liar, or somebody else that will love me for me and will be all of that for me. So it's a gradual step of challenging those thoughts. I love the fact we're having this conversation because you need to challenge those things. You need to challenge those things. And in terms of, but let me quickly say this, please. I love this question because to love is not just a feeling. Love is a commitment. Love is not just a feeling. Love is a commitment, meaning that if you have to have the best, you have to love both with your heart and with your head. So there is a place of head, though. There's not that. Don't throw your head away and say, "Oh, they are saying that we should just jump in without no." But you need to question what are the true values. Like they say, sometimes we major on the minors and minor on the majors. So, for example, you may have somebody in front of you that is perfect. She has the major things, but you are majoring on the minors, like, oh, she's not from my tribe. She doesn't this thing, but she has other things that that, wow, this person is going to be a great person, and I love this person. And you actually feel something. So it's not just like, oh, this person is going to be great, but I don't love this person. It's that you love this person, but what is blocking you from moving on is that, but it doesn't fit all these criteria. So those are the conversations I'm saying we need to challenge. So when you are using your head, is that don't throw away your head, please, in love. Use your heart. It's very, very important. Don't use only your head also, because sometimes you can just be calculative and all of that on your head, and you are not allowing your heart to find an expression. So it's a balance of both. It's a balance of both.
Okay, thank you very much. Krista, you can ask your question now.
Can I quickly ask
Okay.
Doc? Okay, sorry, Krista. There's something that was in the last question that I would have wanted the Doc to just stay a little bit on and give us some insights on it. The question on genotype.
Okay.
And relationship. And then immediately after that, Krista, you can go ahead and ask your question.
All right then.
Okay, yeah. So that's why I said love with your head. So genotype is a reality, but there are ways to go around it. So if you are going into a relationship like that, and you really love the person and you prayed about it, and well, let me not use, but I can't help but say pray about it, because see, don't just do it only with your head alone. Don't do it only with your head alone. Because for example, you can meet somebody that is AA like you, or maybe you are AS, then you get married to someone who's AA, and then you will have children and you don't have any AS child and you are happy or well, but something happens to all your children at the end of the day. So you don't know your future. You don't know what. So, but as far as your genotype is concerned, please use your heart, pray, then find out information, because there's a lot of information out there on how to find out certain things, blah, 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 and all of that. So you want to go and be as informed as possible and then make your decision. So there's nothing wrong with saying that genotype is like a no-no, but you see, that's the thing about, I often believe about how God match makes us. I don't know why I keep making mistakes, but makes us. He would find that person that just kind of just fits and suits. You need to also trust it, and that's a lot. So trust God. It can be tough sometimes, but you can also learn to trust Him, that God, you will work out something that is beautiful for me. So love with your head and love with your heart. Very important.
Okay, thank you very much. So my question there too, I think you've addressed one a bit, but I want to bring it from another perspective. So for us, a lot of times as children of God, as Christians, so what the struggle here is, how do you put those things? You've talked a lot about majors and minors, right? In terms of checklists of, okay, these are the kinds of things I want to see in the person that I want to marry. And I'll kind of be happy if you are able to share from your own personal experience. If before you got married, did you have kind of like list, or to say, okay, this kind of woman, this and this and this and this and that, and were you looking out for those things? Were you like stuck on those things to say this person has to fit this box? You know what I mean? And how do you then balance that with God? Because again, they tell us, okay, you mentioned over and over again that God will not impose somebody on you. The Bible says the expectation of the righteous will not be cut off. Again, there's also the part of opening yourself to God's perfect will. So to me, in my head, it's just a combination of all of these things. Do I as an individual put all my qualities or expectations aside and kind of just open myself to whatever God brings? That's so how do I create that balance? That's the first question. The second question, you said life is what it is and not what we think it is. And on the other hand, there's a saying that they say you have to place a demand on life and make life what you want it to be. How do you like differentiate these two? Because I feel like they're two different things. In a way, this second statement simply says you make of life what you want it to be. But if you say life is what it is, so how do you find that balance between these two statements? Like people saying make of life what you want it to be, and you saying life is what it is. So life is what it is. Do you just like accept it, or do you? I don't know if you understand what I mean, but yeah.
I understand perfectly. Your question is very beautiful, and in your question is your answer. You kept using the word balance, because the key is how do I. So when we talk, you see, the thing about is that understanding that there are many paths that leads to one path. That like they say, many paths to the market. So you may ask me that, oh, what did I do? Someone can tell you, oh, I prayed for 7 hours, and then God showed me my wife, and that's how I knew my wife. Well, thank you for that. But somebody else said, I didn't even pray, Seth. Someone said I had a list, and someone said I didn't have a list. The idea is to know that there are many paths, and then find the path that one works for you. So, for example, when I say, let me answer the second one, and then I'll come to the first, that life is what it is, not what you think it is. And then at the same time, make out of life. Now, whether you work hard, you don't work hard, whether you are adventurous, you are not adventurous, we will all die. We will, if rapture does not take place. So life is what it is in that regard. You know, your belief or your unbelief. I always tell people that, look, whether you believe in the law of gravity or not, whether you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, if you jump from a 10-story building, you are going to come down. You know, so, but at the same time, there is that part of life that says, take steps, make adjustments. So that's why the fourth point says, after you've done everything, because there are steps you should take, but there are also aspects of life that Paul will say, put it this way, we know in part, we prophesy in part. We don't have the full answers. I mean, I've done all, it's like, after I've done all the 10 steps, and yet I still didn't get my result. That is the part where you trust the sovereignty of God. You know, and so so the constant thing is knowing that there are different ways, and because there is no one perfect way to just say, that's why I'm very careful to often talk about my own way or this person's own way. And I'm always like, you know, is that, but know that there are many ways. So when you pray and trust God, is that you are saying, in fact, sometimes when you do, you can have your list and say, this is what I want. But Lord, like Jesus, you will say, as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to die, but let your will be done. So you are like, this is my list, but Lord, you know better than me. You know my future better than me. You know how I'm going to turn out, you know, so I'm going to trust you. But if I don't hear any clear instruction otherwise, I will just keep going on what I have. You know, and trust that he loves you so much. If he doesn't want you to go on that path, he will tell you. He will get it across to you. Like I said, God told me not to go on with that relationship, but God didn't tell me whether my wife, you know, but he didn't say no. So I only told you about the one that he said no. But when he came to my wife, I didn't hear anything like, oh, my son, this is the one you should be with. But, you know, 21 years later, God is here, so it's working. So is that constant balance? Like I said, in your question is the answer. Finding that balance, which one to use part-time. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Hello. Sir, there is a question here that says, is it proper for a lady to express her feelings to a guy? But to talk to what Krista just asked, we cannot always wait to the point of marriage to begin to test how God speaks to us. You know, we are all children of God. So hearing from God is not one way thing. It's not hit and run. It's not, if you help me solve this present stage, this present problem, I will just go on with life. So when I'm looking for a job, I'm close to him to say, which one should I take, Stombaja or LNG? Now, when it comes to marriage, should I take Blessing? Should I take Janet? No, it doesn't work that way. You know, I have a personal experience that I'm going to share in 1 minute to say that I have a structure that I want in marriage, the structure of a lady. And then the Spirit of God led me to understand that this desire is born out of your flesh. So those things that you see, and that's why I have issues with attraction. Those things that you see that are attractive to you didn't just start at that point. So we must know where we are with God. You must know how God speaks to you so that you can't begin to test it with marriage. It's too risky to test it with marriage, my contribution. So I will leave the door with other questions for Doc to answer. Is it proper for a lady to express her feelings to a guy?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. You know, if we use scripture again, now this example I'm about to give from scripture is not necessarily, it's an expression. And it tells the story about, I think Naomi, is it Naomi that's her name now? Or is it Ruth? I can't remember yet. I think it was Ruth, yeah, that got married to Boaz. Now, all she did was she gave him sign. Guy, I like you, I'm interested. You know, and sometimes people advise, and this is just an advice. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but this is an advice that it is wiser to be very clear that as a lady, that guy, I like you, in any way you want to pass the information, but you shouldn't be the one to say, would you marry me? You know, that is an advice. Now, if it works out that way for you, let me say this category, because I think this just came to my mind now. If you ask the person out, maybe somehow, but I'll give a story at this point to balance it, you know, and it worked out. It is not written on your head that you are the one that asked your husband out. If it's working out for you and it worked out for you, praise God. But generally, the advice is just the best you can do is shine the light, trafficate, tell him that, guy, you are okay to park here if you want to. I will say yes, you know, but don't be the one to ask the person out. But I remember a particular lady in our fellowship back then. She was persuaded that God said this brother was her husband, and this brother used to come to her to tell her about one other sister that he really, really liked, and he was going to propose to that sister. But that brother had put out the fleas. It's not, but for him, that was his own work with God. He had said, God, this person who I'm going to marry is going to give me 3 things. So he was always gisting to this lady. This lady just kept saying, well, God, if what you told me is true, then it will come to pass. I wouldn't try, and this is my own work. This is how I work with God. I wouldn't try to work it out myself. God has a beautiful way of making it work. At the end of the day, this brother one day realized that this sister that he had always been gisting with, telling her about how he liked the other person, was the one. So he popped the question. They've been married for over 15 years now. She didn't have to, she knew that this is my husband, but she didn't go to, in fact, my aunt, that's how she got married. You know, every time she was hanging out with her husband, they would drive together to work. He would tell her about girls and this thing. She was like, this is my husband. She would go home and pray about it. She didn't tell him. No, one day, he just started seeing her pictures, started seeing some things. And then he popped the question. But she had positioned that, guy, any day you are willing, or we are okay, or, you know, so it's an advice. It's an advice, you know, that's my own take on that.
Hello, Doc.
Do we have any other question?
I want to. Yes. Maybe this might be our last question because we would like to close this session by 7:30.
Have you entered?
Thank you so
Put
much.
your leg well.
Thank you so much
We won't put
for
our
Put your leg well.
answer. Please mute
Can I
your
close
mic.
it up?
Please mute your mic. So someone asked a question. He said, when you find the person you want to marry, do you always have a clear conviction, or there might be some doubt going into it? And if you have doubts, does that mean the person isn't the one? That's the question.
I love that question. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. You know, I think the idea of faith is that faith is not, if you know that you know that you know that you know, let me be careful because what I'm about to say may shake some table. So to just answer your question directly, there are times you may have doubts, you know, and it's okay, it's fine. But you want to search your doubt.
Hello, can anyone hear me? I think man, doctor's network is frustrating here. Yeah, just to know that we stream between 3 parts of ourselves: our head, our heart, and our eyes. So it's good to have doubt in your head, but then what is settled in your heart, your level of conviction. So when you have that, for instance, God may not come to you to say, oh, it's talk straight. And that's why I said it still depends on the level, the way God speaks to you. Now, for instance, if God should show to Pastor Koju, for instance, that Covenant Nation will be where it is today at the very first time, he may not want to take that journey. Because so many things had happened on the way. But then you should know the doubt in question, what part of the whole thing is the doubt speaking to? Is it the doubt as to the fact that it's not from your tribe? It does not have the same education qualification as yourself. So we need to be able to get all of this and be able to balance it. So what God is saying to you is different from what your circumstance is saying to you. So your friend is saying the guy is too short. So is that one now creates the doubt, or the lady is too thin? So we must understand clearly where the doubt is coming from. So I leave the rest for Doctor to do justice to it.
I think that just answers it perfectly, sir. Thank you so much for that, because like I said, I had a lot of doubts, but my doubts were not necessarily coming from God. They were coming from my own personal struggles. That am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right thing? There was a time we were having very frequent arguments, very, very frequent arguments. So for me, like, if this is God, then we should not be arguing. That's another wrong I call it, those are misconceptions. The fact that you have conflict is not a proof that you're in the wrong relationship. It may just be that your approach is this. So you need to understand, where is this doubt coming from. It's not enough to just say, is doubt an indicator that, you can, if you like, you can be very persuaded and you are still in the wrong relationship. So it's not as simple as whether doubt or this is that. You need to know, where is this doubt coming from. That's why I said you need to love with your heart and love with your head. So you put the two together. That's my answer. Thank you. I think Rolu Ali answered it perfectly.
So Mr. Doe, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Otefe Edebi. We are very, very happy and we are very glad. Thank you for making out time to join us this evening. Guys, please, let's put in the comment box. Let's thank the doctor for making out time to answer our questions. And Doc, let's say somebody wants to still send some questions to you after this session. Will you throw out your Instagram account, or maybe what would you like to give to them, your email address or which one, in case somebody wants to follow up with a conversation from here?
I'll just put it by Instagram account.
Okay. In the chat group, right?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I sent it to, let me put to everyone.
Okay. Okay. Guys, please go ahead and thank the doctor for making our time to share his experience and for the things they've shared. Doc, want to say thank you very much. You've been a blessing to us. Thanks to all the leaders that hosted this session. This session was hosted by the Working Singles Community Group of the Covenant Nation Community Groups. And I would like to say quickly, as a follow-up to this meeting, we have another meeting that will be coming up next week, Thursday. This will be 7 p.m. in the evening. And we have somebody that is coming to speak to us, to share our own story, right? She's going to be talking on successfully single and happily married. Successfully single and happily married. She's coming to share a story with us on Thursday. So let's look forward to the invites will be shared and the information will be put out there. Let's look forward to it next week, Thursday. That will be the 18th of November. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I don't know if Jumoke is still here. Jumoke, help us with the closing prayer so that we can end this session.
Okay. Father, we thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, Jumoke. Loud and clear.
Father, thank you for this evening, Father. Thank you for open hearts and open ears, oh God. We thank you for the mentor that you used to speak with us, to speak to us this evening. We thank you for our hearts that have listened, and that our hearts, oh God, will obey that instructions that we've heard from the different things he has said. We thank you, Lord God, that you will lead us aright in the name of Jesus. We bless you. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. So please keep the date, 18th of November. That's on Thursday, 7 p.m. We will have another session. And don't forget, this was brought to you by the Working Singles Community Group of the Covenant Nation. God bless you all. God will give you the grace to practice all that you've heard and the wisdom. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. God bless you.
Can you please come help me? Because I have a feeling I'm still on here.